Sometimes when I'm thinking about us, before we got lost and we parted, back to back we would carry on and we'd do anything for what we started. But this time we could break. I run and drive, everything's the same. We'll try tonight. This time we're not safe and sound, not safe and sound. Back we would carry on and we'd do anything for what we started. But this time we could break. I run and drive, everything's the same. We'll try tonight. This time we're not safe and sound, not safe and sound. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? Yeah.
Well, I'm definitely good for you. And you know who else is good for you? It's Blunty. Welcome back to the FPV News with JB and ItsBlunty. It's good to see you again, Blunty.
Good to see you too, Joshua. Good to see you.
Yeah. Too. Yeah. It's good to be back. Did you enjoy your 2 weeks off Tuesday? What'd you do with your Tuesday nights?
Yeah. I troubleshooted drones and
same thing I do every night.
The same thing I do every night. Yeah, exactly.
Well, I'm really glad to be back. And I'm really glad to catch up on the news because while we were not doing the news did not stop, did it?
No, the news kept going. That's for sure.
Yeah, and we're going to keep going tonight. Normally we go 6 to 7. Sometimes we go over, but tonight we've got a big list of things, and we're just going to keep going until they're all done to kind of make up for lost time. So, and we'll talk about that stuff and what's coming up on the news in just a second. But let me say hello to all of you out there. Welcome back. Welcome back to the YouTube chat. Welcome back to the guys. I got to do this. I haven't done this in weeks. Oh, look, here's my YouTube chat right there. It's got to be the best effing name I've ever heard. That's got to be you, Blunty. This guy doesn't know you. You've earned that name.
Very true.
Over here, we've got the Discord right here. Thank you very much to NyanCat. I assume you're in Europe and you're staying up super late, so thank you so much. Glad to have you. Thank you, Prinks FPV, for that €2 super chat as well. Hey! Oh my God. Shout out JB team from France, Paris, Prinks FPV on IG. I feel like €2 for an Instagram shout out is a little bit cheap, but it is what it is. What do you think, Blunty? What should I be charging for an Instagram shout out? I have no idea.
I don't know. That seems fair because there's still a barrier. People got to type. There's no link there.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, that's a good point. All right, €2 is fair. You get the Instagram shout out. Well, Blunty, I've got all the topics for today's news down in the show notes in the video description. No timestamps because we haven't done it yet. So if anybody out there wants to keep track of the timestamps and send them to me after the show, that would be great. I kind of feel like normally this is the part of the show where we read off all the topics for this week, but we have a ton of them. Do you think we could do like a condensed version?
Yeah, I got a condensed one.
All right, let's do it. What do we got this week?
All right, so we're going to start with a quick follow-up from Gemfan. We talked about Gemfan in the past and some prop issues, so we're going to look at some new prop testing they've done. Then we're going to have a big old DJI block, a ton of DJI information for you about some recent updates and changes and drama and encryption and all kinds of good stuff. Then we'll do a shark bite block, HD0 Divimath shark bite block. So we'll have a little conversation about that, a new update, and some different things that are going on there. And then we'll hit a RedCat IPO. That's pretty interesting. And,
wait, RedCat just had an IPO, and they raised I don't remember what the number was. They raised a lot more money this time. I guess you can just do more IPOs.
Yeah, and then we've got some radio open source information, some Express LRS, Edge TX, full releases. We'll talk about those and why those are important. Open VTX project, we'll review that. There's some Happy Models making some models for that. We'll review some racing stuff. We've got a racing drone that maybe was faster than some humans in a test. We've got an update with some racing simulator where Velocidrone got a major update. DRL added a new map. We'll take a look at all those. And then we've got some companies doing some drone laser tag. All the ones we talked about all have come together to make a little conglomerate. So we'll discuss how that all works out.
Yeah.
Then we'll take a look at a cyclodal rotor drone that I thought was pretty neat called the Cyclocopter. We'll take a look at a new low-weight action cam called the Hawkeye Firefly X. And then to finish it off, we'll look at a history and maybe a summary of some of the drone light shows because people are super hyped about the Olympics show that we'll also take a look at.
Yeah.
Maybe if we don't get, or we'll talk about because we can't.
Sure, we'll get to it. Yeah, I saw somebody's TikTok. I don't remember which channel it was, but they were one of these drone light show companies and showing some of the behind the scenes, and I thought it was very, very cool. I said to my wife, this is kind of like fireworks, and she was like, it is nothing like fireworks. I was like, okay, it's. I mean, she was offended. She thought fireworks were much better.
Oh, is that the take? I would think the opposite. Fireworks are terrible compared to yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think drone light shows are in many ways superior to fireworks, but
100%.
They both have their pros and cons. She was not. She's on team fireworks. You can guess which team I'm on, right? Team drone. Okay. So let's start. Well, we'll put this one first just because I always feel like it's important to follow up. Like we did a story about Gemfan's F3 and F4 props basically breaking way too easily. Gemfan issued a recall. I don't actually have any update on the status of the recall if you wanted to take it. They offered 2-for-1 replacement props, yada yada yada. I don't remember the details. But I don't know if there's been any movement on that. But what we do know,
I saw them replying to people and saying, "Hey, can you reach out to your the vendor you're trying to exchange them with, or the vendor that you want to purchase them through, to make sure that they're on the plan, and if not, they can reach out to us." It seems like that's kind of the way it's going right now.
That's also what I heard. It's just I wasn't sure if any people. So people were like, "Okay, well, I reached out to my vendor. Now what?" And I don't know if anything has actually happened. So, but what we do know is that Gemfan has been testing the crap out of their updated formula.
Yes.
Let's see. So, can I full screen this? Yeah, there we go. Go ahead, Blunty.
Yeah, so basically, they wanted us to show this video. I was reached out to by the same rep that kind of gave us the previous information. They really want to let everybody know they fucked up on the last props. They didn't do proper testing. And so they wanted to show evidence of that testing.
Okay.
And so they've gone through and had their people basically make a video while they're doing testing to kind of count up the props and kind of give a good idea of like what's happening and what they're doing to kind of beat them up and make sure that they're not going to break and be brittle. Or if they do, they've got like, hey, here's a bunch of videos showing we tested a whole bunch and they didn't do this. So they can at least narrow down what's going on. Yeah,
it's great that they're taking responsibility for this. We got a link in the show notes to this exact video.
Yeah, if you go to about 2 minutes, there's a good.
Yeah, I don't want to. Yeah, here's 2 minutes right here.
There's just an example. Like they're making sure they're
like I guarantee you that the old ones would never. They were so much more brittle for some reason. Maybe it was a problem with the plastic alloy or what. But I guarantee you they wouldn't have done that. There's no way. So that's encouraging. The proof of the pudding is in the tasting, as they say, and the proof of the prop is in the flying or the crashing. But good to know that Gemfan is trying to make good here. So
absolutely.
One IFPV says, "Where are you testing this? The right place to test props, a bando, right?"
Yes.
Okay.
This looks like a healthy bando.
Yeah, good. So with that out of the way, our sort of due diligence, the next batch of stories relates to DJI and firmware updates in the future of the DJI system, fixing bugs that people have been sad about for a while and adding features that people have asked for a long time. I thought DJI was just going to abandon the whole system, never update it again, and screw us all over. No?
I think we kind of thought that too, and it seems like that's probably not the case. My impression, before we dive into this, my impression is if you ruffle enough feathers, shit's going to change. Like, that's what seems to have happened. And we'll get into why, like, I think that, but that seems to be the case. So basically, DJI, we're going to start with talking about the fact that basically there was a lot of rumors and a lot of stress and a lot of everything about encryption. People were saying that, hey, we talked about it before, that Caddx was saying they were going to encrypt some of their cameras on new devices
to try to lock out
hardware,
to try to lock out cameras like the RunCam MIPI, basically.
Yes, exactly. And so they finally were able. They made a statement. That statement finally came out and said, "Look, we're not going to lock out the cameras. We understand everybody's mad about this. Basically, so we will no longer push encryption updates of the DJI Air Unit Lite."
And I want to say that there was a message I saw. I'm not sure if it was public or widely distributed, but I saw a message from DJI saying there has been some incorrect information spread by certain people. I don't know. That's how I read it. Basically saying, we never said we do encryption. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure that Caddx said they were going to do encryption. Like, they at least heavily implied it. So it's not like we pulled that out of thin air.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, they definitely did. And this, that post is basically like, hey, we're not going to do it. Okay. Calm down. That's the impression I get from that post. But another interesting part of that post is item number 4 on that post. Which I believe was edited in possibly, but either way, they have basically promised that they're going to do canvas mode.
And this is a big deal.
Yeah, and so canvas mode, for people that don't know, is something that SharkBite recently added, but basically allows you to draw anything you want on the OSD, just like an OSD chip. Betaflight can send the OSD chip the information, and then it draws on top of the frames of the analog video. Previously, DJI gets all that information over MFP, and it's like a predefined set of information. So they say like, hey, do you have any like GPS? And then it gets the GPS. And hey, do you have any voltage? And it gets that voltage. But it can't like get something it's not asking for. So canvas mode is the promise that they can basically draw or add anything on the OSD. The DJI doesn't have to approve. It just kind of is done.
Yeah, so there's OSD elements that DJI doesn't support. And until recently, well, so far, SharkBite supports canvas mode, which means you have the full Betaflight menu, you have the full Betaflight OSD. Anything Betaflight can do on an analog camera, it can do in SharkBite canvas mode. And that's a big feather in SharkBite's cap. And people have been asking for a long time, why doesn't DJI support canvas mode? This is the first, and DJI has said nothing. They've just ignored us, which is kind of what we come to expect from them. No offense. But this is the first indication. Caddx says, we are working on canvas mode currently. Now, don't hold your breath. We don't know when that'll actually happen or if it ever will, but it is exciting to hear two things. Actually, number one, that canvas mode is potentially coming to DJI, but number two, that actual feature development is happening. Because a lot of people thought when the FPV drone came out that basically that's it, that the Air Unit and the Vista are going to kind of stagnate and maybe just be ignored, and that there wasn't. And apparently, Caddx is working on firmware updates, which kind of surprised me. So that's very exciting. Let's see if it pans out.
Yeah, for sure. So there's that. The thing I want to say about canvas mode for sure is just that, like, it's very, I believe they just learned what canvas mode was, like, when they made that post.
I've been bugging them. I mean, yeah. I've asked, and we have to give credit, don't we, to the guy who seems to finally have DJI's ear.
Yeah, so this is kind of why I bring this up, and this is why I said in the beginning, like, it's kind of about what you shake up. So Ian, Mads Tech, is kind of the one who, like, pushed a lot of this stuff to happen. He made a video, talking about some of the issues, and canvas mode was one of the things he brought up. But the other thing was VTX encryption and how big of a deal that was and why it would be a problem. And basically what happened was he was contacted very quickly after that. And he basically said that, like, they were freaking out about it and they wanted to know what was going on. So he gave them information about, like, hey, this encryption's bad. People don't want this. They looked out at social media and saw everybody else talking about it and were like, oh man, this is a problem. And then apparently DJI got upset. I don't know how all that internals worked. But anyway, the result that came out was the DJI statement that you saw, that we saw, and then a Caddx statement that came out later that we saw, that we just looked at for the encryption information. But the other thing, the canvas mode, was something that basically they didn't understand it, and Mads Tech had also just told them. So, it may, I'm still on the fence about whether this will actually happen or whether we're getting, like, hey, we'll look into it sort of thing. Yeah,
this certainly could be they're getting blowback over the encryption, and so by saying, "Oh, by the way, guys, we're working on canvas mode," they kind of smooth that over, and then they may or may not deliver. I hope they deliver.
Yes, so I just want to, like, make sure that's clear. I guess.
Yeah, it's weird because I promise you, 2 years ago, I don't know the exact time frame. I think it was like around 2 years ago. Drew and I were in a meeting with DJI engineers, and they said, what kind of stuff do you want? And, like, I guarantee you people have been bugging them. And yeah. I'm happy that finally someone, like, grasped the situation and decided to do something about it. I don't know. Mads Tech has he's gotten traction on several different things. I don't know why they listen to him and they don't listen to anybody else, but I mean, I guess he's the conduit, right? He's the prophet. Yeah. He goes up on the mountain and talks to DJI and comes down with the stone tablets. We will get canvas mode.
They seem to have an eye on his channel, that's for sure.
Great.
So, something else then that kind of brings us into our next topic. We can rewind a little bit. The thing that kind of kicked off this whole videos triggering updates thing was actually a previous issue, the blackouts issue. So we had previously reported on an issue where there were blackouts on Air Units and Vistas on the 1.02 firmware. Well, DJI basically quickly after that, Mads Tech released a video. And quickly after that, they put out a patch with his information. He said he DM'd them some info, and they asked for logs and stuff. And he was able to get that to them, and they were able to push out a patch 1.02.01 to fix those blackouts for users. Now, I just want to real quickly say a lot of people are confused because they're going to be like, I don't see that on my V2 goggles. I just use Air Units and Vistas. So if you go into it's super convoluted, but if you go into your firmware patcher and you're on the Air Unit Vista side that you always use, this probably will never affect you. You can only get the 1.02 patch, which is the problem, or the 1.02.01 patch, which is the fix, if you switch your goggles into drone mode and then actually try to patch on drone mode. That's the only time you'll see those modes. If you don't see that stuff, you'll probably see 10606 or 101. Both those are safe versions, it seems, for Air Units and Vistas, and you can hang out there. As always with DJI stuff, it's kind of convoluted. So
yeah, okay. Interesting. Wait a second. Is it? No, that's right. Sorry, Blunty. People are talking about the volume. I'm trying to get our volume fixed. I thought maybe I hadn't set it up right. Let me turn you up a little. Okay. Okay. Sorry about that, Blunty. Continue.
All right.
So we've got this update about the blackout problem. What else have we got?
Yeah, so that came out. Everything was hunky-dory with the blackouts, and we were happy that we saw those. That also had some DJI FPV drone updates, but we don't need to go into those, I don't think. But nothing was a super big deal. There wasn't anything like fancy there. So then we suddenly saw another firmware update come out, 1.0.0606 for the V1 goggles, the Air Unit, Vista, and the remote. And we were like, oh my God, they patched it after a year. It's literally been over a year, and they patched the old hardware. What could they possibly have done? And then you look at the notes, and they added support for new Vista hardware, basically. So Air Unit Lite, for people who don't know, is the Caddx Vista.
That's it. There was in this specific firmware update, there were no bug fixes. There was no new features. And people started to speculate that this was where they were going to lock out the RunCam MIPI. But Caddx spoke up and said, no, that's not what they're doing.
Yes. Yeah. So basically, that was part of where we got the response that we looked at before, where they said, hey, we're not locking anything out. Don't worry. This was just for new hardware. So they're basically saying that there's chip shortages causing them to have to change the chips, some of the stuff that's on the hardware, and they'll need to patch for that. So that's what that was for.
Yeah.
And so then
this specific firmware release is basically nothing. It just supports the new hardware. Nothing has really changed. Yes,
and if that wasn't enough DJI news for you, we got one more. So I have access to a tester account through some other means, and DJI has pushed a notes to that tester account, and I've got those notes in an image or link there.
There we go. That's what I meant to do.
Normally in the tester account, you have access to future firmware sometimes, but it doesn't show you notes. So this is actually notes that are applied to the patch, which is what I think it's like a thing. So basically it says black screen appeared when using AV in, and then recording stopped unexpectedly if footage was being saved to SD card of Air Unit. So that sounds like we're talking about the blackouts when you use the analog modules. And it sounds like we're talking about SD card slow on the Air Unit, right?
And oh my God, if you, like a lot of people in FPV fly Vistas, so they don't have this problem, but if you have an Air Unit and you're trying to use the onboard DVR, the SD card slow error for some people has made it completely useless.
Yes.
And people are like, oh, just use a faster SD card. No, they're using,
Yes.
So if they have actually fixed this, again, amazing. I mean, took them long enough, but better late than never.
Yeah. Yes, which I will also mention, that was also part of stuff like I sent some stuff to Mads Tech about this. Like he made sure to put a lot of this stuff in his video. And so hopefully that's where this is coming from. But I will say I tested the AVN and there was no change for me. I still have the same blackouts when I changed channels on the Fusion module that I was getting before. No big difference. However, the SD card slow, I've gotten 3 packs in now, ripping really hard. And I've had no SD card slows yet. And normally for me, I can reproduce it by just doing a really hard power loop. So to me, that's a good sign. But it's inconclusive, and I'll continue to do testing on that.
Yeah.
It is what it is. It's beta anyway. So
right, this is unreleased firmware that you have access to. But the takeaway is potentially there's a fix for SD card slow.
Yeah, and I think the big thing is they're working on this stuff. There is literally notes showing that these are changes that are happening to the new units. So if nothing else, they are trying. And one is a goggle change, and one's a Air Unit change, and they're both I would say that's super positive, and I think it's a turnaround. And I think most of us would have bet against this happening.
I would have. I would have. I mean, a firmware update that makes compatibility with new hardware, sure. Yes. But a bug fix for something like the SD card slow or the addition of a feature like canvas mode support, I I mean, obviously it hasn't happened yet, so it's too soon to bet, but I'm shocked to even see them talking about it. So that's encouraging.
Yeah.
We'll see how it pans out. That's the end of the DJI news. We're going to talk about some SharkBite stuff in just a second. Before we do that, let me get a couple of these generous super chats that have come in. Midwest RC, thank you for a $5 super chat. Am I going to release a review of the Diatone F5 V2? Diatone is supposed to be sending me one of those, but the short version is that the Diatone F5 V2 is basically seems to fix all my complaints about the V1. The arms are stronger, the VTX is higher powered. It seems like a really good thing, and I'm looking forward to getting it. Tony Parsons, thanks for a $5 super chat. I ordered a Shen Drones 3-inch frame. What flight controller and ESC and motors do you recommend? 4S or 6S? It'll be analog with TBS and full GoPro. Tony, thanks for that. I don't have I don't have a standard loadout for a 3-inch Cinewhoop. If I would go with whatever Andy Shen uses is the bottom line, especially in terms of motors and props. I think he's using the 2207.5 for his new frame, which is actually it's like a 3.3 inch, not a 3-inch. And like 1507 is pretty standard for 3-inch Cinewhoops. But and then as far as 4S or 6S goes, you can tell me your opinion, Blunty. Ciati says that on 3-inch and below, there's no point to go with 6S. But there are some pros who really think 6S Cinewhoops are the way to go. You got an opinion on that?
Yep, I'm still of the opinion that this stuff is probably better at handling amps and voltage spikes. And I would rather run 4S than 6S because I don't trust the equipment to be overrated properly.
Yeah.
So I would rather run 6S rated equipment on 4S and then have it maybe run a little higher amps or get different, efficiency or whatever, than be throwing 6S through something that's rated just barely for 6S.
Yeah.
Just because of voltage peaks and stuff.
I'm the same way. Yeah.
Is right now I'm running a slammed squirt. That's a Chris Teal over at Teal Drones makes those.
Yeah.
And those are a pretty cool project. You can also print all the TPU yourself. It's just like a thinner version of the squirt. And testing though, it actually does pretty well. It seems like a good compromise between the two. So.
Yeah, Andy Shen has what's basically like a slammed squirt now. I forget the name of the frame. It's got 385 millimeter props, and it looks slammed. So, that seems to be what the pros are doing.
Yeah.
Anyway, there you go. Thank you for that, Tony Parsons. Josh Feltz, thanks for a $2 super chat. Does canvas mode mean we could get vector graphics? No, it's still character-based, but you can put the characters anywhere you want. Basically exactly like the analog OSD.
And also, I think you can, it depends on how it works out, but I believe the case is you can pass, if you're passing data, I don't know if you're passing pixels on the screen and then it would be Betaflight font packs, or if you're calling fonts that are on the DJI goggles. I'm not sure which happens.
I don't know about that. I'm not sure if the actual data link between the VTX and the goggles is pixel-based or character-based, but I'm pretty sure the Betaflight implementation is character-based.
Okay, so it'll pull from a character set that's in the DJI goggles that would come in canvas mode instead of having I see. Okay.
Dominic Clifton's in the chat. He says canvas mode is vector-based. If that's true, that's pretty freaking amazing.
Yeah, the data is pixel-based. Okay.
Ah, well,
that's what I was thinking, and then it would be based on how Betaflight draws it. So then it's up to Betaflight.
That's interesting.
Or whatever it can draw.
I'm really surprised. There we go, Dominic. Okay, I got it. That's the distinction.
Oh.
There's two things. One is canvas mode, and one is DisplayPort MSP. I actually didn't realize until this moment that they were separate. I thought they were two different names for the same thing. So DisplayPort MSP is character-based, and you're just drawing characters on screen, like an old serial terminal. If you're old enough to remember ANC terminals, but canvas mode is vector based. Well, that's better because obviously vector based is really good. Cool. Thank you for clearing that up, Dominic. Christopher Tilley, thank you for a $5 super chat. What specific components are holding up the supply chain for HD products like the Vista? It can't be just the processor. What are the other issues? Chris, my understanding is that it's the 120 FPS sensor, the image sensor. Is some rare specific item, or Blunty, wasn't there an image processing chip, or is that the same thing? Do you know anything?
No. There's a processing chip that allows the sensor to change and be programmed and stuff, which is the AP1302 chip.
That's the one.
I believe that's the thing that they're having problems sourcing and why the Polar doesn't have it.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure.
Yeah, but it's the same reason that none of the cameras have 120 FPS now is the hardware that's missing. Yeah. And Coelho FPV, thank you for a $10 super chat. Good show, gents. Okay, let's proceed. For those who are like, oh, DJI, get out of here. Well, can we have something better? Can't we have something more open source, cheaper? I don't know. What about SharkBite? You like SharkBite? We got some news about SharkBite. Where do you want to start, Blunty?
Okay, so SharkBite has a new camera available for the system. It's the RunCam HD0 Micro HD0 camera. So this is 720p, 60 FPS. It's actually a micro camera instead of a nano camera.
Yay!
And it actually,
oh my God! It has an M12 glass lens. What the hell? Thank you. All this time.
So
say, why? Why did you make the camera a nano camera with a crappy plastic lens, and finally we get one with a good lens? You're going to bust my bubble, aren't you?
No, well, I'm going to say part of the reason we're seeing this is because it's a good thing. We're seeing a move, I think, into HD0 pushing their side of this. So this camera is HD0 branded. It's not SharkBite branded. From what I hear on the backside, that's because Carl over at Divimath has been really pushing all the backside of this work. He's the one who's been making the OSD, campus mode stuff getting tested. And we'll talk in just a second about the new firmware here. But all these features are coming from Carl, from what I understand, from Carl sending stuff out to testers, those testers working to get all this stuff tested out, getting back to Carl and then doing quick work on this firmware. And the reason that we're seeing this camera come out is because Carl has taken the lead and pushed to get this camera work done. That's what I'm hearing.
So the relationship that you might imagine is that HD0 and Divimath is basically like an OEM, and Fat Shark is sort of driving the development. But the picture that you're painting is a little bit the other way around, that Divimath is sort of driving the innovation in this case. And Fat Shark is... Fat Shark is... They would never do this, just kind of resting on their laurels, saying this product is good enough, not really pushing to improve it, and sort of leaving obvious improvements like an M12 glass lens on the table. Fat Shark would never do anything like that, would they? Okay.
So it's unfortunate, but it seems like now we have a big push by them. So now, we just looked at that. That's a page on the HD0 store. So they're selling a cam on their store, as well as they're selling extended cables for the SharkBite system. They're HD0 cables, and they're selling, I believe, a new lens as well that you can use for the nano camera.
Mm-hmm. They're allowing you to upgrade the nano cam. That's really cool.
And that's all coming through the HD0 store now.
Well, let's take a look. Sorry, Blunty, go ahead. You think?
No, I was going to say that's actually great. Let's take a look at what that camera looks like.
Now, bear in mind that you guys are going to see this with me restreaming it. So if you want to see the full quality, there's a link in the video description to this video. Of course, that's still not the full quality because it's still been YouTubified. But I've looked at this previously. I think it's obvious that this is a big, big improvement compared to the current SharkBite camera. Is it as good as DJI? I mean, some people would say yes, I know, because some people say the current camera is as good as DJI. I don't think so. I think it's a big step forward.
I think we're getting real close to the RunCam Nano, the Nebula Nano sort of territory here. I think this looks pretty good. This looks a lot better than the older cameras, that's for sure.
I completely agree. Some people look at the SharkBite camera, the Nano SharkBite camera, and say that's not much better than a really good analog feed. I disagree. I do think it's better, but I feel like the distinction, this is clearly a step forward, is a lot clearer with this camera. And I don't know how much of that is the lens. Like if you take a glass lens and put it on the SharkBite camera, how much better does it get? There's people who have 3D printed custom enclosures to do that. I feel like this is really getting somewhere. So this is really exciting.
The other thing, I'm not sure that I thought this would be possible, but it seems like from what I'm hearing on the backside that this was because they kind of let Fat Shark drive everything, and that wasn't Fat Shark's big concern. So, Divimath is hearing the concerns and pushed RedCam to get this camera out there, and I don't know, it's looking really positive. So one thing I've noticed is I think we're starting to see the edges of that system now that you look at the trees and stuff. Because now that you can see the image clearer, there's some kind of, obviously, like you can't send like a gigabit per second over the air or whatever it would be to fit like 720p 60. So there's some kind of onboard encoding that's happening to get you down to like a certain, to whatever bit rate they can.
There always has to be some kind of compression with digital high definition systems. Even if if you've got something like DisplayPort where you can, I don't know what the limit is, but you can send gigabits per second, maybe then you can send, whatever 4K 60, whatever, without compression. But for a wireless system, you have to have some kind of compression. So they're not, you may have a 720p signal coming out of the goggles or displaying in the goggles, but at some point the resolution is being reduced or compressed in some way.
Yeah, and then, so I think I think this is where we're really going to see the split in the systems, because now you're going to see like, hey, this is the edge of the system. This is what it really looks like. This is where you're going to start to see the blurring and encoding differences, and this is where they'll probably dial in all that stuff as more people fly these cameras. And then where DJI can make up for it, but you get variable latency. So that's kind of where you're going to start to see that like heavy trade-off. And I think it's much more clear now. I think before, I don't know that the system wasn't selling me on the system. I think now with this camera, this is a lot more appealing. This is a good looking camera. And to see the HD Zeros kind of taking the reins here and getting in the background and making sure stuff's happening and, doing this update that we'll talk about here in a second.
Yeah, and I should give some credit. I dogged Fat Shark a little bit because I can't resist dogging them for that one thing. But I do know that Fat Shark, the very, very first SharkBite VTXs, were delivered. My understanding of the way the story worked is they were delivered by Divimath, and Fat Shark went, "This is not good enough. Let's try again." And Fat Shark was the steps between between Bitefrost. That's what it was. The steps between Bitefrost and SharkBite actually coming out were a lot of Fat Shark driving and pushing to make it better and saying this is not good enough. So I definitely want them to get credit there. It seems so obvious to me that you would want to release that system with the best camera you could, and it just confused the hell out of me that they released it with a micro-sized or a nano-sized camera with an M8 plastic lens. It's like, and then it's so that's the only reason I'm dogging a little bit. I'm glad to see them making these moves. Now,
so
go ahead.
I was going to say, in other SharkBite news, we've got two other little things to cover here. One, I guess, is not super. It's a pretty big deal. Is the patch notes here I have in the second group, they're actually patch notes on HD Zero, so we can get a good idea. Check that second link real quick. I just wanted to discuss.
Sure thing. This one right here. The second link. I see. SharkBite update HD Zero patch notes. Got it. All right. What do we got?
So they basically added a new OSD. So they've changed the way the OSD records and like the way it shows the fonts that are displayed and some different things about it. They've added some auto scan. They've added a true pit mode that people were asking for. They finally have smart audio for the VTX-R. So that's pretty cool. They've added the MOV recording format. RF power manual calibration and some bug fixes and stuff. Just good to see that progress. And
so these are updates to like the goggle menu. When you say OSD, you mean like the actual goggle OSD and menu system, not the like the flight controller OSD.
Well, I believe in the display of the OSD over the canvas mode. I think they're changing the way all that stuff shows too. So
nice.
And then also they've put out their update that we see every few weeks. This one came a little late. But it just talks about that update we just talked about, the OSD and stuff, pit mode and smart audio. But also they've said that it looks like this week they'll be shipping the HD box goggles to get FPV.
Yeah, this is a Fat Shark Scout with a SharkBite built in, basically.
Yes.
Pretty slick for those who don't already have a set of like HDOs or something. We'll have to see what the price is. Do we know a price on this? I don't know if we do.
We do not have a price currently. So keep an eye out on Get FPV because I'm sure they'll post as soon as possible.
Yeah. What price? Let's think of a number, and then we'll say the number at the same time. What price would be a good price for these? The Scout will take. We'll play the Jeopardy theme song.
Are we gonna say like what price do we think is reasonable and they could come out, or do we want to say like
what do you think it'll actually be? I'm just gonna say what I think would be a fair price for these.
Okay. Okay.
So let me look. Fat Shark Scout. So we're on the same page. Fat Shark Scout. It looks like it's $200.
That's because they have that PowerPlay DVR in it, I think.
Yeah, and then Shark Bite digital HD system. Get FPV. I'm looking it up. Okay, I
think it's $250 for the module.
Okay. Well. Okay, let me think. That adds up to $450.
Yeah, I know where I'm at.
Okay, hang on. I'm thinking. What would be an actual 300 to 200? That's still cheaper than an HDO. I guess. Okay, ready?
Yeah.
Here is what? Say your number. Go ahead.
300.
350 was what I was thinking.
Okay.
Okay, I did the numbers. It adds up to $450 if you were to buy the Shark Bite and the goggles separately.
Yeah.
But $450 for this, $550 for a DJI. I know they're not the same product; they're targeting different markets. But now, how much do you think Fat Shark is really going to charge for them?
It's $450 or $500. That's what I'm expecting.
Let's find out.
Yeah.
All right, our bets are in. In theory, it should be cheaper because it's integrated.
Yeah. But it depends on how you look at it. If you compare it to DJI and you say like, oh, this is the same, hey, you get, either one's a digital system. And you try to do something like that, then it can go way up there. But I don't know. I'm hoping that the sourcing was good and they didn't pay out the arm for some of the stuff. And we'll see.
I feel like someone at Fat Shark is watching this going, it costs us $350 to make them. We couldn't possibly sell them that cheap.
Yes, if Greg's watching this, he's yelling that. So,
sorry, Greg. And there's one more thing, though. So this isn't a news item per se, just a commentary. Fat Shark or HD0 may have given us a good camera finally, but it's still a 200 milliwatt VTX. And I have heard rumors they're working on a more powerful VTX, and I hope that pans out, because if we were to have, say, a 1 watt VTX, an 800 milliwatt VTX, and a good camera, I feel like that's the point where Shark Bite starts to truly, definitively compete with analog.
Yep.
And I don't feel like it does right now because the output power is so low that no matter how good the image looks, the range is just too short.
Yeah, and so they did say right at the end there, we don't have any information right now on new higher power VTXs, but they are in the queue. So hopefully we'll hear about that soon.
All right. Moving on, we got a big news item, and I didn't see this announced anywhere. I heard about it from Drew, and then I was like, why haven't I heard about this? And I did some searching, and I found that it had been announced, but no one had there you go. The link is in the wrong place. Sorry about that. So RedCat did an IPO a while back. They raised, I think it was single digit, like $6 million or something. I don't remember the number. Go ahead.
Gotcha. I thought this was the same IPO. Is that my confusion?
I don't think so, because it says July 2021. Is that right? That was just last month. This is dated July 19th, 2021.
Gotcha.
And what seems to have happened is that they acquired Teal Drones and their share price surged. And then based on that surge, or I don't know, they did another IPO and they raised $60 million. And I want to I want to point out that, and then the share price dropped because they sold more of the shares, and that's what shares do. But I want to point out that, like, we heard that RedCat acquired Fat Shark for something like $7 million. That was not a cash transaction. That was just like they traded stock shares, and they argued about how much the company was worth. Nobody got $7 million in their pocket. But this IPO, RedCat literally has $60 million in cash, like, sitting in the bank, is how I read this.
Yeah, depending on what all other debts and stuff. But yeah, for sure. Yeah, it definitely says for gross proceeds. So we don't know what the net was, but yeah.
They did another issue. So it wasn't an IPO. It was just another public offering, not an initial public offering. Sorry, Blunty.
An underwritten public offering. I see. Yeah.
Now, Jeremy Sarge, it says the shares were diluted. They killed the stock price and they screwed their investors. I mean, if you think about it, the shares were, I mean, I'm not an investor, so tell me I'm dumb for thinking about it this way. The shares were at like $2. They acquired Teal. They shot up to $6. Somewhere around $4.50, they did an IPO, and they dropped it down from about $4.50 to $4.18. I mean, granted, they diluted the shares, but it still seems like people are up compared to where they were. I don't know, Bo. There you go.
Yeah.
So this is like, I don't know what to think of this. Like, what are they going to do with $60 million? I have no idea, but something, right?
Sure. Yeah, it's just so hard I have no idea. I'm not on the earnings call, so maybe we need to get on one of those and find out what's going on.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah. Why don't we can we get on an earnings call? How do we do that?
I don't know. I'll look into it.
Okay. It's a big deal because, like, I mean, I'm thinking about it just from the Rotor Riot perspective, the Fat Shark perspective. What is the thing that keeps Fat Shark from doing more R&D? It's money, clearly. Well, now they have $60 million. Okay, that's not DJI FU money, but it's a lot of money. Who knows? What is the thing that Rotor Riot, right? How much of that money is going to go to Rotor Riot to make episodes? I don't know, but all the time that I've been in Rotor Riot, it's been like, well, we're selling product in the store and we're making episodes, but like there's never been much of a budget to do like big tentpole episodes. It's always like, hey, Orca is flying us to Croatia, so we're gonna do some episodes in Croatia. Cool. I would love to hear that some of that money was going to Rotor Riot to just make awesome episodes, and who knows? I don't know, but I'm excited.
I guess we'll find out.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know.
And everybody who's like RedCat, so I don't know. You can't say that RedCat is just like an empty shell company with no plan and nothing when they have $60 million in the bank. Like, I don't know about business and I don't know about investing, but if you got $60 million in the bank, people have to take you seriously. So it seems to me.
Sure.
All right.
I just don't know enough about this to know, do they actually have $60 million in the bank? Or do they have like $20 million in the bank because they had to pay out like these 6 people who put in money here, and then they had payouts here, and then whenever they do a public offering, there's this cut out of this, and then there's this. I just don't know enough about the back end to know all that stuff.
Well, I don't know if any of that information is public, but there you go. All right, let's wrap that up and start talking about some open source projects that are hitting some major milestones. Where do you want to start, Blunty?
All right, Express LRS has hit 1.0, and then 1.0.1. So, but it's out and it's official. It's released. So if you're not familiar, we've talked about it a bunch. There's a bunch of videos now online. It's been a hype thing for a while. But Express LRS is basically just an open source receiver protocol that's been pushing the cutting edge of things like packet rates, using the LoRa chips to their fullest extent, which are just like, very good RxTX modules, basically chips that can be used for RxTX. And some different things they've done, the first company to use an SMD antenna, those little square antennas we've seen before. Hopefully we'll see some other companies start to push to those. And yeah, just providing some really good stuff. And we had like 9 or 10 release candidates over the last few months, and then a bunch of work before that. And finally, after years of work, it's finally hit 1.0. So it's good to see.
Yeah, very good. For those who didn't want to feel safe running a release candidate, but wanted to dip their toe into the ExpressLRS ecosystem, now you've got an official release, although the RCs have been pretty stable. Yeah, ExpressLRS 1.0. I'm really happy to see ExpressLRS becoming more and more established. I think I'm excited about a totally open source control link because it gives potential. I mean, everybody thinks about open source as this philosophical thing, but there's a practical aspect of it, which is that people can fork it and improve it and change it. And that is not something you can do with any of the existing control links right now. Yep. Any bind and flies yet with ExpressLRS in them? Surely that's coming, right?
Yeah, I think Beta FPV is going to do one. So Beta FPV's got the AIOs they're working on. But I know I saw a long range, one of the nano long ranges, with the HGLRC AIO that they're doing with the ExpressLRS over SPI.
Yeah.
So, yeah, just a lot of companies now. I think we've got HGLRC that's coming on board. Beta FPV has kits. Namino RC has kits, and then Happy Model has kits. So,
yeah,
lots of support.
Good. Yeah, hardware support, software support. ExpressLRS, I think, is officially like not just a niche product anymore. It's definitely out there. Yeah, Fufufu FPV says, I wanted to get it, but the setup looks unfriendly. Definitely a little bit of... Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, it's sort of unfriendly, but honestly, at this point, if you get some of the newer hardware, you can basically like wire it up to your flight controller, just like you would wire up Crossfire, plug it into your computer, and then hit flash on the configurator, and it will just do pass-through, and it'll work.
Yeah.
It can be a little finicky from time to time, but a lot of the newer stuff is getting easier to use.
Definitely.
Also, we put a link in the show notes to expresslrs.org. They have a website now, and it's like all their wiki stuff plus a lot more stuff combined into easy to see guides that kind of take you through all the steps. And there's a link to the Discord if you need help. There's a lot of support there. So I would say now's a pretty good time to kind of dive in. If you can build a drone, I think you can get ExpressLRS running on your drone at this point. That's pretty doable. So.
Yeah, especially with the pre-made hardware from Happy Model, Beta FPV, and Naminio. Yeah, definitely a lot easier than when you had to do weird things to a FreeSky R9 receiver. So ExpressLRS is officially out. What else is officially out?
EdgeTX 2.4.0, finally. We have a non-release candidate. We have a release version of a software that supports touchscreens and that has the 2.4.0 in it. That's what we've looked for so long.
OpenTX could not do it.
Yes. So EdgeTX has finally done it. Hats off to those guys over there. It took up more RCs than they expected, but they did get through and finally got it done. So support for most radios is in here. Some of them are still custom builds right now, but they are working really hard to get everything worked out. There is an EdgeTX flasher tool as well to build this stuff, and it's only getting more and more integrated. They're slowly working to push more and more patches for this stuff. But the main things here are, if you've got a touchscreen radio and you wanted to use the touchscreen, now you can flash a release version of software and do that. And the other big thing is that they have a solution in here called 1-bit. We talked about a little bit before. And 1-bit adds basically the ability for a QX7 or X9D Plus to not have to use the inverter mod. You can instead of having to do the physical mod, you can run 1-bit mode on EdgeTX, and it should sample correctly so that it doesn't drop telemetry.
It doesn't really help anybody today because if you're using a QX7 with Crossfire or whatever, you've probably already done the mod. Yes. But if you haven't done the mod, now you can get full speed without having to do the mod, so that's nice. Still some caveats. There's some limitations and known issues that you definitely don't want to make yourself aware of. But if you're dying to use your touchscreen on your Radiomaster TX16S, EdgeTX is here, and I've seen some private videos. They're private because they were released by devs for devs. And they're kind of buggy and stuff, and they don't want them people thinking bad things about HTX, but the private videos show some of the features that they're working on, and it's pretty exciting. The whole touchscreen interface is really being revamped to give you, all the touch interface you expect, double taps, 2-finger taps, 3-finger taps, swiping, apps that you're running apps on it. You can minimize. It's very, very interesting and very exciting to see where they're going. So
just to be clear, Bobby Bags asked in chat, is HTX free? Yes, HTX is just HTX is basically like cutting edge OpenTX is the reason the name is like that. And it's essentially like what we have with 2.4.0 is kind of a platform now. So this is like where they can build off of and say like, hey, we've got a base here. We're going to accept PRs quickly. We've got a bunch of guys working that are ready to do this thing. And they're just going to roll in all kinds of features. And also the other cool thing is they are still looking at OpenTX development. So any PRs over there are going to get pushed to HTX right away. So they'll also maintain those new feature sets as well.
Yeah. It's very, very exciting. I still would hesitate a tiny bit because of like OpenTX Companion doesn't work. Some of the ways of backing up and transferring your models still are not fully fleshed out. I am going to work now that it's in an official release. I am going to work on a tutorial for people who want to try it. And given how fast they freaking got this going, I don't think we're going to have to wait long. But this is pretty exciting.
Yeah.
All right. Can I transfer my OpenTX models directly to EdgeTX? Blunty, I think the answer is yes. They will transfer over, but you can't go back the other way once you make the conversion. Is that right?
I believe, yes, but I think you can't do it with Companion. You do it with SD card models.
Correct.
Yeah, so if you back them up to SD card, they get converted to HTX when you do it. But yeah, you can't do it with Companion yet. You can flash HTX with OpenTX Companion, but you can't use the features in OpenTX Companion to do stuff to the radio.
Yeah, it's basically an automatic conversion. If you have a radio that stores models in the models folder, if you don't, I'm not sure about that, but it could be. I'm not sure. Let's see. There was a question in the chat. Yeah, Bushizi says, leave your models in your models folder. It will convert when you turn it on for the first time, but not all radios store models in the models folder. That's the part I'm not sure about. What's the actual use case for a touchscreen radio for FPV? I totally get this question, and yet when I saw this private video of a dev demonstrating the touchscreen features, I was like, oh, that's pretty slick.
I think the answer is right now, probably not a lot, right?
Yeah, but they're adding stuff.
Eventually, you'll have a bunch of options and a bunch of things you can do. I mean, just imagine what you can do on a touchscreen on a phone, or different apps or widgets that can be designed, similar things, as long as they can work on the processors on the radio, would certainly be feasible. So, yeah.
I think if you never configure your models on your radio and you just use OpenTX Companion, then you're like, well, what am I going to do? But as soon as touchscreen is properly implemented, suddenly you can do a lot more on the radio. And I don't just mean tap a scroller to change a value instead of moving a physical control. Obviously, physical controls are good at certain things, but some of the stuff I've seen in the usability of the radio is pretty impressive, and I think it's going to prove itself as they go forward. We got one more, Blunty, one more open source project, and this is a weird one. It's an open source video transmitter.
Yes.
What does that even mean?
Yeah, so we looked at this project a little while back, the Open VTX project, but now Happy Model, in their continued support of open projects, has supported Open VTX by producing a couple different VTXs that run on Open VTX software. And I guess it makes them a little easier to produce for them.
Yeah.
I do think, unfortunately, the cost is going to be a little rough on these guys when they come out, but I think eventually this is kind of leading the way to.
You say the cost is going to be a little rough, and that's only because until now, OpenVTX software has run on a $13 Emacs video transmitter or something. And the problem that I'm reading is that video transmitter is out of stock everywhere. So there's basically no hardware right now that you can buy that'll run this OpenVTX software. So Happy Model is releasing this VTX with the software pre-installed, so you don't have to flash it. and it's hardware you can buy, at least for now, that'll run OpenVTX. Is
Yeah,
that
it
about
looks
right?
like it looks like Makerfire's got them for about 19 right now. MSRP's 25. So that's not
19
too
is
bad.
19 is great for a cheap VTX. It's only
Yeah.
bad if you're used to paying 13.
Yeah.
What's the point of an open source VTX firmware? Like, what does this do that makes me want to buy it?
Well, right now, not a ton. I mean, right now
Okay, fair enough.
right now you have essentially think of all the things like TBS My VTX control, right? The different Wi-Fi things you can do, and the different like Immersion RC's got their race modes and their different features, and their Tramp can do the wand and stuff like that. All those features could be added to an open platform and will be over time, hopefully, added to this open platform. And then all those things will be available on a single VTX, and that can be spread across to all these different VTXs by just a manufacturer opting to do that. So
Yeah.
hopefully that becomes easier and simpler, and there's no licensing costs for people to do these kind of things.
Yeah, one thing I think it does, two things that I think it does now, I'm not 100% sure on these, but one is it can use either smart audio or Tramp. So
Yes.
if you have a Crossfire receiver and you want to interface with a Crossfire receiver, it only supports smart audio. A Ghost receiver only supports Tramp. If you have a flight controller, obviously it can do either. But the other is I think it has calibration of its output power, so that if you're a racer and you want to make absolutely sure you're getting 25 milliwatts and you're not blown out, you can manually calibrate the output power to get your power exactly where it needs to be, that's a nice little feature. And who knows what it'll do in the future. But cool that Happy Model is supporting open source projects like this and ExpressLRS. Way to go, Happy Model.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. What's next?
All right. Is a racing drone faster than a human computer-controlled drone?
A computer-controlled drone?
Yeah, let's take a look at that. So this I got a lot of people send me this. This kind of hit the big news sites, I think. But it's a pretty neat project. I've actually linked here. I couldn't find the paper anywhere else, so I found a copy of the paper and I linked my drive link for the paper. If anybody wants to read that as well. We've also got a YouTube link with just some video information and some general testing they did. But the gist here is that they had two guys who were pretty good racers that they could find race around this track, and then they analyzed the track and then put a drone to getting around it as fast as possible with drone control. And so I thought it was pretty neat concept to do, and they were able to beat the humans by, I think, like 0.8 seconds. It was like 6.2 versus 6.8 or 6.9. Was like the average times they were beating them by. It's interesting for sure, because there's a lot of things you like think about in racing that we've talked about a little bit, but you don't like know how to put onto paper. And they actually, explain a lot of that stuff because they have to program it in for the drone. So they're talking about things like, we calculated the fastest route, but then we actually had to back off from the fastest route, because if we took the fastest route, what happens if there's an error or there's wind or there's variance or a motor fails or whatever? We need the drone to be safer. And so they were making decisions as to not possibly hit gates by miscalculations or variances. And they were talking about the difference between them and a human, because a human might not make those decisions and might end up hitting the gate or just missing the gate, but actually being faster in some cases because they're making those judgment calls that a drone would not.
Yes, certainly one thing we see there is that the computers were way more consistent. Their error bars were super small. And we certainly know that when it comes to fast racing, consistency is in some ways more important than speed. It's worth pointing out that this was off drone processing with sensors in the room. So the day will eventually come where a drone with fully onboard programming and no external sensors will be faster than a human pilot, but that day is not here yet.
Yeah, it took them about an hour. They spent about an hour mapping out the course and running it in sims and stuff to make sure that they were as happy as they could be with that. So, yeah, it's a pretty cool project.
I'm imagining, could this be used to give human racers a better idea of what the fastest lines would be?
Yes. Yeah,
You
there's a
know?
lot of people. There's a lot of people arguing online and saying like, "Hey, there's no way a drone is faster than a human." Like, I completely disagree. Like, humans not. There's nothing magic about a human. I think once you get the latencies down and you use the right things and you figure out what you're doing, I think the only time where we're going to see that difference is if you try to do it live. So if you say like, "Hey, we both see the track at the same time," I think the drone is going to learn slower. But I think overall, the drone's going to learn more about the decisions it's making and the mistakes that it makes and things, and can apply them better. So I think, like you said, like being able to learn, like, oh, it cut here, or oh, it took this line. I wonder why. Maybe that is actually faster. Can a human take that line? Something I thought about a lot is there's something in speedrunning in video games. Called tool-assisted speedruns.
Right.
And so with the tool-assisted speedrun, you slow the game down to frame by frame, and you decide the best move every frame. And so you can do things that you could never do with a normal controller, because you have 16 to 32 samples a second on your control input, and there's no way to hit A down, A down, A down, A down like 32 times in that second perfectly for like 4 seconds or whatever.
Right.
So a task can do that, a TAS can do that, and you can get way better times on a tool-assisted speedrun. I wonder that same thing will likely apply to drone racing, where like a human won't be able to do exactly the same amount of inputs because it can't. Like, a human brain can't calculate that that's safe exactly the same way.
That's what I was wondering. I was wondering, like, if the computer calculated the optimal route, that may be a route that a human simply is not precise enough to fly, and the human you just can't cut that corner that tight. You'll lose control, and that may be something that humans will struggle to keep up with. So this is just another example of robots being better than us at things, and you know.
Yeah.
I still have consciousness, though. Try that, human.
I think this is really interesting and has some implications. It's just cool to see the progress.
Yeah.
Super cool. To see more.
Yeah. Very cool. We've got links to the original paper and other information about this study down in the video description in the show notes. Got a couple more super chats before we go into the last 5 or 7 stories. By the way, as a reminder, we are going long tonight. This is our first show back after a 2-week break. So we're just going until we finish, so we catch up. Hey, Mads Tech is in the chat. Mads Tech, tell us your secret to getting DJI to listen to you. Thank you for all you do, man. Let me get some super chats out of the way here. Prinks FPV wants to know, thank you for a €5 super chat. Do you think the DJI FPV drone controller could switch to the Air Unit? Do you know why Caddx Vista looks so bad resolution to Air Unit? So Caddx Vista is the exact same camera as is used on the Air Unit. The image quality of the Caddx Vista and the Air Unit should basically be exactly the same. If you're seeing a big difference, I think you are the exception. Could the DJI FPV drone controller switch to the Air Unit? Yes, absolutely it could. It would just be a firmware thing. Theoretically, it could. But they didn't make it do that, and there's no indication that they will.
They promised a long time ago in a video interview they would, but they have never.
Well, but did they say they would let it bind to the current Air Unit in Vista, or did they leave the door open that it would be some future firmware update or a hardware update, not the existing ones? I can't remember what they actually said.
I think they knew what they were implying.
Yeah, I know what they were implying. They imply a lot of things. They implied that it would have USB video out on the V2, and we all saw how that went. So no is the answer as of now, Prinks FPV. Gemfan is here. Gemfan, you done testing props? You ready? Everything Micro FPV, thanks for $2.99 Australian, says the Fat Shark Shark Bite goggles are supposed to have 1080p screens. They come in at $350 is their guess as to the best price. That's where we came in. Everything Micro also leaves another $8 Australian dollars and says Beta FPV have the HX115 long range bind and fly with Express LRS review coming soon. That's exciting. Okay, I really like the HX115. Go ahead.
Wait, so 1080p screen.
Yeah.
Two questions. One, is that like the whole screen or each eye? 2, if it's each eye, why? Because it's the camera 720.
Oh, well, is the Scout currently a binocular goggle or is it a single screen?
I'm not sure. Because the DJIs are like a box goggle, but there's two 2-inch screens back there.
Correct. Why 1080p? I mean, future compatibility, perhaps, maybe price. I don't know. I like the fact that it's a 720p. It's not even really 720p, is it?
That's what I mean. Is like, why are we doing 1080 screen? Like, that's got to cost more money, right? I don't know. I mean, of all the things to complain about, I don't think that would be a top on my list. But let's just say future expandability. If you could charge me $30 less and not give me a screen that you don't use the pixels on, I'd rather pay $30 less. But that's just
but surely they did that math. Like Fat Shark, of all the things you could criticize Fat Shark for, wasting their customers' money on excessive features is not one of them, right?
That's true.
Sure, and the one thing Fat Shark definitely can do is choose new screens and new optics modules for their goggles, because that's basically their entire upgrade strategy for the last 4 years.
But is that still true after the acquisition? Maybe they're like, hey, we got partners overseas, and you've got to use these things, and we don't know how the back end goes. So
I don't know, but that doesn't feel true to me. Just I would gut check that. I don't know, but that's a valid question. Why are they using 1080p, not 720? And someone at Fat Shark goes, the one time I give you more than you strictly needed and you still aren't happy. Yep. We'll never be happy.
Change Agent in the chat says HD0 supports 1080p 30. That's interesting.
Interesting. Just not at any decent range or latency, presumably.
Yeah, it's the same chip in there, so.
Yeah. Okay. Good question. Maybe we'll know the answer at some point in the future. We'll cover it on the news.
Yes.
All right, let's continue. We've got some software updates and more general. What do we got, Blunty? Velocidrone. Major update. What did Velocidrone add?
All right. So Velocidrone has their biggest update in a long time. This has been months and months and months and months coming. They finally moved from Betaflight 3.3 to 4.2. So we've got new Betaflight code. We've got feed forward. We've got dmin. We've got a new Betaflight UI. We've got all the rate systems like Flight 1 and KISS and actual rates. They've updated the track editor. They've added some new toothpick quads if you like to fly toothpicks. They've got some new micro maps if you like micro maps. And you got the micro pack. They've got new combat scenes. They've got a new mega class quad, a new normal racing quads. They've got a new combat practice mode. So if you want to practice combat and you don't have anybody online, you can practice with combat bots? Now.
With bots?
My understanding is yes, with bots. It's got a leaderboard and everything.
Wow, nice.
You've got difficulty modes and stuff.
Nice.
So we've got and just general improvements in like the train texture, simulator load times, kind of everything else. They've kind of done touches to and made major changes to. So,
is it an automatic update or do we need to update manually? Asks Huff19. Huff19, go ahead. You
should be using. Okay, so some people are using Velocidrone where they launch it from the EXE. The regular Velocidrone. You do not want to launch Velocidrone like that. You want to be launching Velocidrone through the Velocidrone launcher. If you're using the Velocidrone launcher, that will always patch the game to the latest version when you load it up.
Yeah, so I actually learned this. I didn't know that. So I was just launching Velocidrone.exe, but you want to use, as Blunty said, launcher.exe. I'm not going to do it because it'll tank my live stream. But as soon as you load the launcher, if there's a new version, it'll download it automatically. So just always use launcher.exe to launch and you'll be fine.
Most people won't be affected by that unless they're looking for a new update, but we run into it all the time with races because people don't know and then they're on the wrong version and they can't join the lobby. So just so you know.
Okay. So cool. Velocidrone adds a ton of new stuff. In addition, DRL has added a new map.
Yeah, I thought this was pretty neat. DRL added the campground map. Which is currently, they haven't added a new map in a little while that's actually new, which I thought that was neat, but also it's pretty graphically intensive and it's kind of cool terrain and area to fly in. So I just thought it was neat to give a little nod to DRL for doing that.
Yeah, DRL has mostly known for their racing, but they have a couple of really big freestyle maps. One of them is the Aircraft Boneyard, and this is another sort of outdoor tree style map. So definitely check that out if you have got DRL and you want to try some freestyle, or I assume they're racing. as well, but feels to me like that's more of a freestyle fun fly map.
Yeah, pretty cool to see more areas being added there.
Yeah, if you have a weak computer, do not try. I mean, you could try, but it's going to kill your computer. It's a big, complex map, so you'll need a high-end computer to play it. Going to get to one of them graphics cards. I'm just going to go down to Best Buy tomorrow and pick me up a 3070. Yeah, right? Shouldn't be any problem.
No, that is supposed to end soon, though, I think. They've got solutions for all that stuff. Yeah. I watch Linus Tech Tips every now and then. They were just talking the other day about some new solutions for that, so...
I got to take a lesson from Linus. He is the king of, I am renovating my house and I'm turning it into a business expense. New video. Yes. I installed HVAC in my house. New video. I installed a new doorbell. Like
in all of his employees' houses.
Yeah. His employees are there helping him basically up. Like, I can't decide if he'd be the best boss or the worst boss. Okay, everybody, writer's room. Episode ideas. Yeah, there's a new graphics card. There's a new laptop. What about one where we vacuum my rug? Who wants to make that video?
Does the rug store need a sponsor?
Right. We need a new electronic vacuum. No, I just need to vacuum my house, and I want one of you guys to do it for me. Okay. No, he's probably pretty cool. Okay.
All right.
Let's see. We got one more.
So that was all of our sim updates. Are all of our racing updates. So now we like to talk about drone laser tag here. I like to talk about drone laser tag here.
You do. I'm kind of meh on it, I have to be honest, but you seem, it makes you happy, and
I'm leading the charge on that. And so this is even cooler to me, because they're all coming together to collaborate and make a better everything, because it's for the pilots, basically. That's the idea. So we've got VAS video aerial systems with their ACE combat system. We've got FPV combat with the FPV combat system. And we've got ZTAG coming together with the ZTAG system. And all three companies have decided to join together with an agreement and work together to develop a line of RTF vehicles with gaming, new IP. Basically, they're going to pull together, get all their good stuff together, and try to find a way to integrate and make a good pulled together system so they can all work together. It may start out as little racing drones that are just sold in Walmart or something, you know what I mean? Like, however it'll work out, but slowly over time, the goal is to build up a drone laser tag system with these three people working together. And then also a little teaser for next week. This is such a long show. I didn't put it in the notes this week, but next week we'll discuss a little deeper into ZTAG's actually pushing the live streaming part of this, and together with DigiView, they're working on systems to do like live streaming events like DRL does. So it'll be like integrated laser tag matches with everything on the OSDs. Everything will be together, so you can watch it live. It'll be really cool. It'll be really cool to see them all come together. That's all still in beta. They're still testing everything, but it looks very promising. So I'll go into a deeper dive next week. Into that project. So.
And I can't tell you how excited I am to see this, because there's a point, there are certain types of markets where it is better if everyone is compatible. And as soon as one vendor, like Apple does this, they're like, no, we're not going to use USB or FireWire. We're going to use our own proprietary connector. And if you're a giant gorilla like Apple, you can get away with it, but it's still not good for your consumers. It's good for you, and it's bad for your competitors, and that's usually bad for your consumers. I'm really excited that these three separate laser tag systems, they were like, no, it's better for our consumers and it's better for us if we all are cross compatible, because the hardest thing with a system like this is finding someone to play with. And if you have to buy 8 systems to play with 8 of your friends, that's harder than if you could just buy one and then some of your friends have another one. And this compatibility is going to make that more likely. So I think this is a great move, and I'm a big fan of it.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. Super positive. Looking forward to that. So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, good job, ZTAG, and the other companies there.
Yeah, I want to give a shout out to Lava Chemist over on the FPV Out group has been working really hard with ZTAG to get that implemented. They're trying to do they're basically doing integrated Raspberry Pi solutions and stuff that can SoC stuff that can go on site and plug right in, and to the goggles, and it'll all be kind of seamless and stream ready for anybody who wants to do it out in the field, like a kind of a setup. So like it's not like, hey, we're kind of cobbling this together and you've got some software we can flash this stuff. It's like a full system to go like, here's how you do it, here's how you stream, here's how to make it look good. So it's pretty
Mr. Huggy wants foam planes with lasers cutting the wings off each other. I do think that sounds awesome, but probably not a good idea.
It would be cool to do like detachable little things that like drop the wing off the side though.
I mean, at that point, you're basically you're done, right? When we put little firecrackers on them and they just they literally blow the planes up.
Could you put like holes in the wings? Well, that was a video. I saw a video like that. Somebody did a flight test video where they drilled holes in the wings and saw how long they could fly.
What if,
I remember
yeah, what if you, hey, Z-Tag, get on this. The Z-Tag unit needs to integrate with like a rocket starter motor or a firecracker. So basically you put like an M40 in your airplane, and then when you get hit, your airplane literally explodes. Somebody get on this. This is there's no downsides to this idea.
No
downsides.
I can't think of anything.
No possible downsides. Okay. Let's see here. The next up, we got another sort of weirdo drone. We covered that, drone with the motors squished together once previously. This one is the cycloidal rotor drone, the cyclocopter. Blunty, tell us about this.
Yeah, so, this is an ever long series of how can we make a thing fly with drone motors. This is another example of that. So basically, his idea was like, hey, let's get rid of all the stall problems and things with wings, and let's do like basically this rotating cycloidal wing. So you've got all these blades that are rotating, and also they're all bound to each other by a center servo that can rotate around. So that's the tan thing you see in the inside. Uh-huh. So you've got control of the angle of the blades by the servo. It's kind of interesting. So you have so basically how this works is if you want to pitch, then you just use the nose rotor. There's a single blade on the nose that can pitch up and down. If you want to roll, then you can change the RPMs of each of these spinning rotors, and that'll roll the quad. And then if you want to yaw, you move the servos to move the blades inside of the rotors, and that can actually tilt and yaw the quad around.
Okay, yeah, I got that. That obviously, yeah. That makes total sense.
But what also is cool about this is there's another mode where you see how it's going forward like this. If you change it, so you go to angle mode and then you put the pitch onto there instead of the yaw. So you're changing the angle with the pitch. You can actually fly in flat modes and control the speed with the pitch of it because you're changing the angle of the blades. Pretty cool.
Yeah, I see that. That seems like what they're demonstrating there, where it's flying forward, but it's not pitched forward. That's crazy. Yeah. It's crazy.
So neat little concept. He's also got files for this if you want to build one of these on your own. He's kind of put together the concepts here, and he explains everything about why it works.
And then he front flips it and it crashes? Is that what happens? Let's see.
He front flips it.
It sure looked like it crashed right there.
I think we hit the ground, yeah.
Okay, I can do it. No.
Pretty neat little project.
It's really cool. Weird flying things are always cool.
Somebody in the chat says paddlecopter. That's a good name.
Yeah, I agree. You got to find a cyclocopter. I'm not sure is the right name for it. That's the actual name, but it's really cool. I don't know how you find these things, man. It's pretty slick.
The internet.
Right, of course. I should have seen that coming. Alrighty. Next up, we have a new. This people emailed me. It is a new naked GoPro style camera called the Firefly X Lite. I hadn't heard of this existing, but they said, "Hey, do you want to review this?" And I was like, "Well, I'll at least take a look at it." $129, 4K 60, 34 grams, and it's basically just a naked GoPro, if you will. Yeah. It's not a GoPro, but
yeah. So this is I think the big thing is $130 here for a 34 gram action cam that you can fly that actually has footage that's not bad. It's
Yeah,
not like
let's
I don't
take a
think
look
it's
at the
going to be
footage.
like mind-blowing footage, but it's definitely like for the price, it may be something you can risk that you might not want to risk something more expensive.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. I mean, we wouldn't compare this to a Naked Hero 8, which is going to cost you easily. I mean, $250, $300 if you buy a refurbished one and do it yourself, or like $400 if you buy a Gep RC. But you certainly could compare this to like a SMO 4K and say which is this footage better.
Yeah. And so so this is by a company called Hawkeye. Hawkeye has also, you might have seen some random split cams across the internet. They've got like a 4K 30 FPV split cam they also sell that's kind of been going around on like MakerFire and stuff. And they have some other like generic action cameras that they've done before. But this one actually is targeted at this FPV market. And it seems like an interesting option. So I'd like to hear if anybody uses one of these, how it works out.
Yeah. Wonder if it will be compatible with like GyroFlow.
Yeah, this is something where, you would just log the gyro in black box and then, run GyroFlow on this. So you have like a free way to do this, or a GoPro to GPMF if you want to use real steady.
Yeah. Yeah. The footage, it doesn't look bad. Again, you guys are seeing a re-encoded version. Link to the original video is in the video description. I wouldn't think that they would show crappy footage. I mean, they're probably going to show it at its best. I guess that's not true. Sometimes they show crappy footage, but it looks okay. I'd like to see it in real, in hands. They're going to send it to me, so I'm going to test it out. But I don't think it holds up to a GoPro, but it doesn't look bad, though.
Yeah.
So, let's see. Gemfan Hobby in the chat says they contacted me, Mike, at Gemfan, and they're going hard on Facebook communications lately. So apparently they're trying to get the push out. For $130, it's going to be worth it for a lot of people, as long as it doesn't have some deal breaker issue or just be crappy quality. So
yeah, they even sent it with like a little F3S to 6S plug-in cable for it, so you can run it right off your balance lead on your battery. They've got a little GoPro connector style thing for it. So they've taken a little bit of time to do some effort into it. So I'm interested to see people use it.
Honestly, compare it to a RunCam Orange. It's been a while since I looked at footage from a RunCam Orange, but this footage looks better to me. And a RunCam Orange, if it was just a $120 action cam that was half decent, durability is going to be bad because it's a naked camera. But
so
that's
just
an interesting move.
Another teaser, I guess, for next week, we'll look at GyroFlow in beta. Has a system right now to take the gyro data out of the RunCam 5 Orange and use it for stabilization. They've been working with RunCam on that. So it's kind of interesting.
So it's sort of natively compatible without having to get black box data.
Yeah.
People are picking apart the field of view. That field of view did look pretty small. It did not look like a wide angle super view.
Yeah, I think it's labeled at 150. So not crazy.
Isn't RunCam Orange old as FNet right now? Yeah, but what else has RunCam released? That is, when you're comparing action cameras, cheap action cameras, it's RunCam Orange, Caddx Orca, and that's basically it. So
yeah, people still using the GoPro, the little one.
Yeah, the Session.
There you go.
All right. Well, we'll see. We'll see how that looks. One more today, Blunty. We'll do a little, human interest piece. You've put together a history of drone light shows. You put it together, so why don't you walk us through it, and I'll click on the links.
Yeah, so the only link we can't click on just before we do it is the last one, because that's an Olympics link. So we definitely don't want to do the Tokyo show. But if you guys want to
totally get a copy strike.
Yes, that is in the description if you guys want to see it. But we can't show the Olympics on the stream. But the rest of these are safe. So
thanks, NBC.
I want to show a little bit of the history of what used to happen with the drone light show. So the first one that I could find that was a real coordinated large drone light show was called the Drone 100, and that was by Intel in 2016 or late 2015. And this was like a coordinated effort for 100 drones to do a collaborative light show. Let's see, if you go a little farther in there, there you can see. So this is kind of the proto light shows You can see they're just starting to get the lights down, and they're making programs for it. And
lights are not super bright or super big. But yeah.
So then the next year they were like, okay, well, we figured that up, so let's scale it up. So then they did the drone 500. So they obviously 5 times as many drones, a little bit harder to do, but they had some experience. So they came back and they did 500 drones.
Yeah. I think the extra drones really make it look more fleshed out for sure. Here, I was trying to show you guys the light show. Now we're doing an interview. No, I want to see the light show. Okay, who cares about all that? There we go. Give me the light show. Neat. So cool. Like fireflies.
Yeah, so we got to 500 and they were able to do some cool stuff with that. And that was definitely like kind of a barrier to like, I think people doing a lot of these shows. And then there were a lot of like, I was able to find a lot more early shows in like China and Korea, and a lot of different places. The US was doing some. So then let's move all the way forward to this display I was able to find, which Guinness posted earlier this year, which was the longest ever drone show. And this kind of shows you where the technology has moved to. Because if you look in just like, it's really incredible what they've gotten to here. This is over 26 minutes. This is the longest ever performance of all these drones sitting up in the air at the same time. If you skip just a little bit ahead, like 10, 20 seconds, you can start seeing like, basically it's like a fireworks show. They're doing the similar things
just
like we were talking about.
Images in the sky. I mean, it's just a rotating 3D image in the sky. This is crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
And this is telling the story of Van Gogh, so his like life and death and what he did and over his career, his different paintings and
freaking animated.
Yes, it's very
crazy.
This is a lot of steps past what we saw before. That's for sure.
Yeah. That's insane. Oh my goodness.
This is a 26-minute show they did, but they definitely broke the Guinness World Record for that.
All right.
And then I also found a little behind the scenes we could see. So this is I believe, a U.S. drone company, them doing like a 2200 drone project. And it kind of just gives you an idea. Like you see, they're basically stacking all these things into these like stackers, programming them in order so they like know what number they are. And then they're going out and like having, a whole bunch of volunteers lay them out onto the field in the right like formats and stuff. They're not just like flying out of a center thing and just all going to the right spot. It's kind of a lot of like prep and stuff. So it seems like a lot goes into it. These seem like 3 to 5 inch drones. I think a lot of the ones people are using are about that size. And
Huff19 in the Discord asks, how do they get battery time for 26 minutes? Two things. For the right size drone, a 26-minute flight is perfectly achievable, especially if it's not doing high-powered acro stuff. But more fundamentally, they can just land the drone and with the lights off, and another one can fly into formation with and turn its light on. So they could theoretically space them out, trade them out as the batteries die. So.
Yeah, and this company is also doing their all their own drone work. So, like basically they build and manufacture and everything, like all the boards. They're ordering everything for all their shows because they just have so many drones. It ends up being worth it for the scale.
Yeah.
And that leads us into the video we can't really watch, but we could watch and talk about. We just can't show, unfortunately, on the stream, which is the thing people were talking about lately. There's been a lot of really cool drone shows going around social media, but there's a really cool one going around lately for the Tokyo 2021 show.
And, I haven't actually seen this, but I'm going to start. It's 2 minutes, 16 seconds is this video we've linked. Let's take a look. I imagine they're going to blow it out of the water.
Yeah, it's definitely, probably one of the most technically proficient shows that's been done.
Wow. Yeah. It's just going to be you and me reacting to it without people being able to see it. But
I think it's interesting watching if you see, like, you can see all the drones, like, just wavering inside of, like, their little assigned areas. You can still see that little little waver, but it's really impressive when you think about how hard it is to just get one of our drones to run all the time.
Yeah.
You know.
It reminds me of, Terrence Howard and the linchpin. One of his dreams is to have them link up and then be able to fly. And I was thinking, well, how close could they get and still be able to achieve thrust and not get in each other's way? But, I mean, these drones are all flying, and how close are they to each other? I don't really know. But they're flying in a formation.
Yeah, a foot or maybe a couple feet, maybe, like at the most. I don't think they're too far away.
I don't know. I have no idea of the scale of this dang thing. But
yeah, it's hard to get the scale.
They're all flying in formation, supporting their own weight, and who knows? This is really amazing. It's also so three-dimensional.
And also it really puts us on the, on the center stage for people who might not know stuff about drones. This is at the Olympics, so
yeah,
there's a lot of events that not many events that are going to be bigger, maybe like the Super Bowl or something.
Yeah, really slick. Not FPV drones, unfortunately, but there you go.
Yeah.
All right, that's really cool. Thank you for putting that together, Blunty. We've got links to all those, including the one we can't show you, down in the video description. That is going to bring us to the end. We didn't even go over by that much, Blunty.
Yeah, it's a half hour or so. Not too bad.
Yeah, not bad. We got one more super chat. Jim Sanders, thank you for a $10 super chat. When would I want to use motor limit versus throttle limit? Motor limit limits the ability of the PID controller to control the throttle. Throttle limit limits the max throttle you command, but the PID controller still has full power. So if you're running 4S motors on a 6S battery, use motor limit. If you have a 4S quad with 4S motors and you just want to make the throttle more manageable, use a throttle limit, especially like maybe a 2S tiny whoop that's just a little too powerful to fly indoors. That's the kind of time when you'd use a throttle limit. The other question, I guess for $10, he gets two questions. In actual rates, what's the difference between center stick sensitivity and expo? Center stick, they're just a different way of changing the shape of the curve. And what I would suggest you do is just play with them both and look at the curve. Center stick changes where the knee in the curve is, how far out it is, and expo changes how sort of sharp it is. Just play with those numbers and look at how the curve changes, and hopefully it'll make sense. That's going to do it. Thank you guys so much. It's good to be back. We'll see you again next week. Same time, 6 o'clock Eastern time, Tuesday. I'll be here, Blunty.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll be here too. Make sure you send in some news. If you've got news that we missed, there was a bunch of time there. Might have missed some stuff, so send it to news@fpvknowitall.com.
Yep.
If you've got that. Also, don't forget, go down there and like this. If you haven't liked this and you've been watching, shame on you. You better go down and like it. Also, go down there and give us a comment and subscribe to this channel if somehow you're not subscribed to Mr. Bardwell's wonderful channel. And we appreciate you being here.
Thank you. All right, that's going to do it. We will see you guys next week. Have a great week, everybody. And, yeah, we're out of here. Bye, everybody. Cool. Thanks.